Thank you all for joining this session. Today we will talk about the importance of planning your deployment strategy, and we will share with you some key facts on how to approach it. Let me first introduce myself. I'm Vera Temko from Cittros. I'm working with AX since 2010, so 12 years of experience, mainly on the technical side, including the ALM processes. I'm also a country manager for the Cittros team located in North Macedonia. On today's presentation, we also have my colleague Tanya. Tanya?
Hello from my end as well. I'm Tanya Petrovska, a developer in Cittros for both AX and D365 FO. Among the development tasks, I am also part of the ALM team for keeping customers' environments in excellent shape.
Thank you, Tanya. Before we start with the actual presentation, let's set some expectations so you would know that you're in the right session. Are you or your manager sleepless when production update is happening? Do you feel lack of control for what is actually coming through production? Have you experienced that the other systems that you have in your application landscape are being impacted unexpected by the update applied to your AX or D365 finance and operations system? This session will lack in deep configuration details for configuring a deployment process, but we will discuss the key areas you need in order to establish a stable application lifecycle process, and that will be the foundation for successful AX D365. We will guide you to consider when you are preparing a deployment strategy to ensure that your strategy works before and after go live. And what will be the purpose and the key benefits of having a deployment plan and strategy? That is having full control, stability, and predictability. What we will cover, to be precise, we will see in the agenda below. We will talk about what is ALM, why environment planning is important, then about Azure DevOps tool. We will present you some diagrams as part of the deployment strategy and explain about the Microsoft updates as part of the maintenance process. Then we will talk about the LCS, Lifecycle Services role in supporting your deployment process. And at the end, we will summarize the key facts so you have them ready to use in your AX or D365 FO projects. Let me put up some scenarios here. Let's say you have your AX or D365 FO application in your landscape, but do you know how to maintain your AX FO application? Or maybe you want to implement new features or do some customizations, but what is needed to perform smooth transfer of those customizations to production? Then, why Microsoft updates are important? Or do you know the importance of having a deployment strategy and plan even before you are live? And one more question here. Do you know which environments are needed as part of your deployment process and when? Knowing the answers to all these questions will lead you steps closer in the ladder to a successful management of the application throughout its whole life cycle. The process of managing the applications is known as ALM. Stands for Application Lifecycle Management. ALM is an important part of the chain of processes for successful project and stable applications. One of the considerations in the AX and D365 project is environment planning. Why is the planning of environment so important? It is because it has direct impact to your project itself. In the project timeline until go live to production, but also post go live, you will need different environments to be provided and be active in different stages of the project. So, you should plan when to activate them, depending on the project timeline, depending on the project complexity and the project scope. Then, will you perform any deployment changes? Do you need development environments? And how many development environments do you need? Planning and knowing will help you manage your environments and has a crucial impact to your application stability. Knowing how to manage them, how to perform code deployment, or when to apply Microsoft updates will definitely help you to have full control over your application, leading to a successful and stable go live and post go live support. Environment planning has direct impact to your budget. How many cloud hosted environments will you need? Because you're paying for them on a Microsoft Azure subscription, you know. Maybe you will choose to have a hybrid approach. That is an option if you want to host the development environments in your premises instead of cloud hosting. Also, you want to avoid project delays because you discover late in the project cycle that you will need extra environment. You will want to plan them in advance by knowing in which stage of the project you will activate them. You are paying only when the cloud environments are active. So you don't want them to be active all the time. We will talk about this planning of these actions during the presentation. Then the environments also have direct input to the team size and structure. It is important to clarify ownership. Who will manage them? Who will take ownership of keeping them up to date with Microsoft updates? Who will control the transferring of the custom code or updating the environments with fresh data prior to testing? All of this is important so the team members can deliver their tasks and know their responsibilities. Each environment has a purpose. Environment purpose represents a reason why certain environment should exist in your application topology. For example, the dev box is an environment where the developer performs the development changes. In the build environment, we will do code preparation, where we merge and branch the code that we want to promote. The test environment is the environment like the sandbox for testing. Then, UAT, we have an environment for performing user acceptance testing. Then a production environment and a support environment, which is a frequent copy of production. Now that we have the environments here listed, do you know how to structure and track all of them? That would be by having a document that is maintained throughout the whole project. In that document, you structure and plan which environments you need, their purpose, and when. To build the environment plan, you will start by first defining the milestones in a timeline based on your project plan. Then you add the activities that require a supporting environment throughout the implementation. For example, develop customizations in a development environment. Next, you continue by considering when those environments will be required and how long will they be retained. Following all this will help you maintain a living document that will need to be revisited regularly. For this purpose, Microsoft has produced a sample Excel document that you can use and adjust depending on your project. We have shown here a screenshot of that document, but it has several sheets. When we talk about maintenance of environments and governing them, we talk about keeping them up to date with applying Microsoft Service updates. With the Microsoft Service updates, not only that you have improved existing functionalities, but Microsoft is also publishing new features. You need first to test them, how they work with your business processes. Then, maintenance covers deploying of custom code. You for sure don't want them to be deployed directly in production. You need to have a process for transferring those code changes, right? Then, performing data refresh. By this, we are referring to the testing process, where prior to your testing, you need to update your test environments with valid data in order to have reliable test results. In the context of having reliable tests, keep in mind the impact of the third-party applications you have in your application landscape. When I'm saying third-party apps, I'm referring to the other applications that you might have in your landscape that are communicating with AX or D365 Finance Operation, and that will have impact on the business processes. And as a last point here, I will mention implementing ISV's updates. If you have any installed as additional vertical solutions in your AX or FO application, you will need to keep them up to date as well. The application management is a process that starts from the very beginning of your project. You will need an environment for your fit gap analysis where you plan your business processes. We already said that you might need multiple environments in order to have a smooth transition to production, but they will vary depending on your project scope or complexity. And you continue to plan them in an environment plan document. You are constantly managing and operating with your environments till you go live. But also, after go live, you will need to support your production environment, meaning support your business needs, perform development or configuration changes, but also applying Microsoft service updates to keep the environment up to date. Having a structured ALM process will definitely help you through this whole process to ensure stability and predictability from the very beginning till after go live. Before we see the diagrams that we have prepared for you, representing the deployment strategy of code, let's talk about the Azure DevOps platform and the different phases in a release cycle. In each project, we start by planning the business processes and their flow in the application. Then you continue with develop phase, where custom code is developed if needed, or the requirements are met by using the existing configuration options. Next, you test those implemented changes and verify that the business requirements are satisfied and working as expected. I will just mention here that in the phase of testing, the impact of the third-party applications and also the impact of the data that those tests are performed on. Once you're confident that you have tested successfully the processes, you continue in the deploy phase of the cycle, where you transfer the code to production. The maintain phase is where you operate and use the newly implemented processes in production, and where you keep in mind the Microsoft service and quality updates. Further, this release cycle continues depending on the nature and the complexity of your project. All of those phases we just saw are being logged and tracked in Azure DevOps. Azure DevOps represents a central piece of the puzzle of the ALM process. And it is one of the platforms that together with ALCS, Lifecycle Services, will support your deployment strategy. Azure DevOps provides services for allowing teams to plan their work by defining work items. The work items are representing your business requirements that you want to implement or maybe defects that you want to correct. Then you can classify them by release, meaning when you would like to see them ready in production. There are services that enables us to track the progress and have better overview of the release status. We will show you some samples in this presentation. Then Azure DevOps has a set of services where the developers can collaborate in code deployment and have code versioning possibilities, as well as services for supporting the testing and the deployment process. The team can collaborate with an interactive backlog where each team member can seek the activities pending on their name. They can see the status that they are in, the release tag, and other details. Having this overview, each team member will improve the time for delivering their work and by that minimize any project delays. Also, here is an example of a project overview chart that you can configure for your project in Azure DevOps. They are easily configurable, so you can have complete overview of the stage of the project. You can see Are things in development? Are they tested successfully? Or are they moving forward in the release process? With the rich set of services in Azure DevOps, you can do so much more, but for the goal of this presentation, we will not go into further details. Now that we have the environments identified and we have our environment plan, Tanya will cover how we define the flow for building and moving the code and data across the different environments.
Thank you, Vera. Now I will continue with the deployment strategy and maintenance part. So deployment strategy is unified and a secure process of deploying code to production. The yellow boxes that you see on the screen represent the different environments and their purpose in a project infrastructure, like development environments, build, test, and UAT environments, and lastly, we have the production and support. The developers are implementing the code changes in their DevBox environments. So when the developer has completed the development testing of the modified processes, the code changes are committed or checked in. After check-in, those code changes are part of the development branch. As the next step of the deployment process, a selection should be made which code changes are branched out for the next release, meaning that only these code changes will be promoted to production only if they're tested successfully further in the process. Next, we have the build environment, where those code changes are compiled and built as part of the final code preparations. Then they are installed first in test and then in UAT, so they can be further tested. And once the user acceptance testing process is complete, a sign-off step is needed to confirm that the users are satisfied with the outcome of their testing and the code is ready to be deployed to production. The support environment is a copy of production. This way, you can have a mirror of process testing as you would have in production. So, for example, if you want to check and verify an outcome of a certain behavior or functionality without impacting the production data, you should do that in the support environment. All of the testing performed on these environments needs to be reliable. So that is why you need to have fresh data from production. The data refresh is being performed on different frequency depending on which environment is being performed on. So for example, the support environment is being refreshed most frequently. Depending on the business needs, it can be daily or weekly refresh. Then the test and UAT environments are being updated with production data right before the testing process starts. And for the development boxes, there is no exact timing for the data refresh. They are being updated with data on demand. So in order to have reliable results from testing, let's not forget the importance of Microsoft updates. Microsoft updates must be applied on every environment present in the project infrastructure. It is important that your environments are up to date prior to testing, because this way you can verify that your business processes are compatible with the latest changes from Microsoft. Together with the data refresh, the Microsoft updates are playing a crucial part in keeping the environments healthy, and through that have a reliable test results for your code changes before they are being released to production. You can plan when you need to apply these updates by referring to the Microsoft release schedule. You need to apply every update because through continuous update, Microsoft is providing both improved reliability to existing functionalities and also new features to your environment. This is part of the Concept 1 version and continuous updates. So your environments are being updated with 2 major releases per year and other monthly service updates. So the total of Microsoft service updates per year is 8. After applying any Microsoft updates, you should verify and test those changes before they hit production. The release cycle that Vera explained earlier in the presentation is also valid for applying Microsoft service updates. First, you start by planning your updates using the Microsoft release schedule. Next is the develop phase, and the code in the service updates is already developed by Microsoft. So you just need to apply the update and continue to the testing phase, where you will ensure that these new changes are working seamlessly together with your business processes. And I want to mention here that you can test your business processes either manually or by automate testing. And lastly, you deploy the changes to production. The maintenance of environments is an important part of the ALM process, but let's not forget that you might have other application in your landscape. So D365 Finance and Operation is the key element of your business application landscape, but depending on your business, you might have third-party applications working together with D365 F&O. The complete landscape shown on the diagram represents the 365 FO, but also the other integrated application that will have a production impact. These third-party applications and ISV solutions should be included in your end-to-end testing process. So depending on your project and what impact they have on your business processes, you should consider if they are vital to have them as part of your test UAT process. And so far, we have talked about all the steps that are needed for a successful ALM process, but do you need to have a fail-safe? So even if your applications are running smoothly and your ALM deployment strategy is in place, you still need to consider having a disaster recovery plan. That would mean to think about what to do if something goes not as planned with your release promoted to production. Should a hotfix change be applied, or should the changes be revoked completely? So let me share one example. The production is updated with one functionality that cannot continue as such and was impacted with the latest release. In this situation, you have an option to revoke the changes, but what is important here are the transactions. They might be corrupted or lost. So you need to think about if you can continue with that. And also, what about the other integrated application? Are they being impacted with this code failure? These are some of the questions that you should consider when preparing the recovery plan. It will be your guide to make a quick and smart decision. Now that we have covered the deployment strategy and maintenance, let's talk about the role of lifecycle services in supporting your deployment process. Lifecycle Services is a central portal with set of services that allow you to perform the ALM actions across different D365 FO implementations. LCS integrates Azure DevOps and your environment, so you will have a complete overview. Also, from LCS portal, you can see and apply Microsoft updates, software deployable packages, perform data refresh, and many more options. LCS integrates all of these pieces to fit together and work in a cohesive manner. One of those pieces is also the methodology which your project will be based on. When you create a project for your D365 FO implementation, you start by selecting the purpose of the project. Depending on the purpose, different methodologies will be represented to guide you through the implementation process. On the screen, you can see a sample of creating a new project and choosing a purpose. You can choose between implementation project or upgrade project to the 365 Finance and Operations. On this slide, we have an example of the 365 FO implementation project. This implementation methodology relates to the release cycle that we have explained in the prior slides of the presentation, as you can see by the project phases in the top. There are 5 crucial phases suggested in this methodology: analysis, design and develop phase, test, deploy, and lastly the operate phase. What is important here to mention is that Microsoft is also representing one step deeper to see the actual steps within those phases, along with a brief description of what is expected of that step. Also, you can see an overview of the task history and mark when each of them are complete and continue further. The methodology itself can be adjusted and edited depending on your project needs. Now that you have created your project, in LCS, you can define the links to access the different environments as part of your project. In the screenshot that you can see, there is a project overview with the associated environments. On the right side, there is a production environment and a sandbox test environment. If you click on the full details underneath them, you can quickly go to your environments and then perform the necessary maintenance. On this screen, you can see all information regarding the selected environments like managed environment, Power Platform integration, available updates, and lastly, monitoring. In the available updates section, you have an overview of the Microsoft updates that are available but not yet installed to your environment. Furthermore, you can maintain your environment by applying updates and many more options. Since you will not have a remote desktop access to your production environments, all updates are being applied via deployable packages. Those deployable packages can be found in the asset library. So the asset library represents a repository where you can store various files like your custom code as software deployable package or your production database backup. The Microsoft updates are published in the software deployable package tab, so they are ready to be used for your implementation. There are two types of asset library available in LCS, the shared asset library and the project level asset library. The shared asset library is used by Microsoft and partners to share assets across multiple tenants, projects, and environments in LCS. While the project level asset library is used to share assets across different environments within a project in LCS. This library can be accessed by all users within a project. Among the asset library, there are more tools that are available in LCS. I will not go into the details of each one of them, but I want to mention some that can help with your ALM strategy. One of them is a cloud-hosted environments tool, which you can use to deploy Microsoft Dynamics environments on Azure. When you use cloud-hosted environments, you must select the type of environment that you want to deploy. It can be a demo environment, development, test, or production environment. Furthermore, in LCS, you can use the issue search that helps you find existing solutions and workarounds for known issues in Microsoft Dynamics products. You can see which of those issues have been fixed, which remain open, and which have been resolved as one fix. So there is a lot to talk about the deployment strategy and the ALM process overall, but we have reached the last session for today. So Vera, let's summarize what we have shared in this session.
Thank you, Tanya. For that purpose, we will use the golden circle, starting by why we want to share these exact considerations with you, so you can have smooth transition through production, but also stable post-go live support. Then you will have a clearer predictability that will help you to eliminate possible risks impacting your project budget, project timeline, and your project team. And how will you achieve all this? Is by having an environment plan. With that, you will know in advance how many environments you will need, when you will activate them, so you avoid or minimize potential project lead time due to environment needed in the very last minute. Then, have a deployment strategy for moving your code and applying Microsoft updates. Tanya explained the diagrams for that code deployment flow, but the scale and the complexity of it will depend on your project complexity and the application landscape. But for sure, you need to keep your environments up to date with Microsoft service updates. Have an organized way of working during whole application lifecycle using Azure DevOps and LCS to support your strategy. So that way, every participant will know its duties and roles in the process, and by that, they will deliver better quality of work. Following all of this will definitely help you to have a defined ALM process flow, and you will have successful application lifecycle management. Thank you. Thank you for listening and attending this session, and thanks to Power Community for giving us the opportunity to share our knowledge. Now let's see if we have inspired you for some questions. So me and my colleague Tanya will make sure to give you an answer, but also do not hesitate to contact us via LinkedIn or our emails for further debates.